Hey guys, it's Tiny Tom Logan back with another video for you, and today we are going to be taking a look at the long anticipated, awaited, however you want to put it, BitFenix Shinobi XL. Now what I'm going to do is break the video up into a few segments. I'm going to do the main body of the review, looking at all the case and all the features with an air heatsink in there, and the air heatsink's just in there for like a visual guide for you. Then we'll move on and take a look at the kind of water cooling aspects of the case. And then also we'll move on to something that I'll be looking at, which a lot of the other reviewers won't be looking at, which is the custom meshes, because BitFenix have sent me some of the custom meshes that are going to be released later on. And I've also got some news for you in regards to the side panel window, which will eventually be available for this, which I've had a little bit of a hand in on, because it's finally not going to have any fan mesh in the side. But anyway, we'll look at all that later on. And as we work through it. So what I'm going to do is bring you in now, and we'll cover the case as we normally do, move all around it, and then yeah, get all the other bits done, and then hopefully we'll end up with a nice length video and a conclusion for you all to take a look at. But yeah, time for me to shush and get the camera moved in. Right then peeps, starting at the top, on this far left hand side we've got what looks, or appears to be a USB port. It's actually a charging port which has got power to it, so it's got a lot more current going to it, so it'll be able to charge your mobile phones, your iPods, that kind of thing, a lot better. Then we've got 4 USB 3s, headphone and microphone, and then a power and reset. If you have a look though, considering how close we are to the front, you can see, unlike the original Shinobi, the mesh runs all the way to the back. And we'll talk about that in a bit. Now what I'm going to do is move the camera back slightly in the classic TTL, leaves the camera running professional style-y. And basically what we'll do is we'll have a look. Now at the front we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 optical bays in total at the front, and again you can see that mesh running down the outside of the case. You can just about there with the way the lights are see the cutouts for the ventilation as well. You can also see the BitFenix badge there, and it runs all the way down to the bottom. Now I'm just going to pull this off quickly, move it out of the way, and there you can see that we've got a 220mm fan in the front, and it's also got a dust filter. It is a basic dust filter at best, but it's still got one. Once you've removed it, it can be a little bit of a pain in the bum to put back on. Just need to basically take your time with it. Now also at the front, if you have a look, you can see there's 120mm mounts, and they go up into the drive bays too. So you can see that we've got 1, 2 at the bottom. It comes into this is the second one, and then the third one actually goes up into the drive bay up here. And we'll talk about that on when we get on the inside, but this is part of the water cooling options that I was talking to you about previously. Right then, so around the back of the case, there's 4 water cooling hose pass-through grommets, however you want to put it, round the back. Move down, we can see that there's a 120mm fan mounted in the back, but there's also mounts for 140. PCI Express slots at the back, or PCI slots at the back. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. So there's 9 there. So that's you'll be able to get an XL80X board in. We'll talk about that on the other side. But something that does strike me when looking at the back of the case is there's no ventilation or anything on this side. Generally, because some of the air-cooled graphics cards will still exhaust air out this part of or out towards this direction. And we normally have grills here, but there's nothing on this at all. So yes, that may be something to consider later on. Now if we look down at the power supply, I'll zoom you in a little bit just to show you that the power supply can be mounted either way. You've got all 8 mounting points. I know a lot of the power supplies have got all 8 screw holes as well, as you can see with this Corsair AX. that's got both. So yeah, so you can mount your power supply both ways. Right then, round to the back of the case. I've taken the door off. You can see at the top here, the first look at the grommets, and all the cut throughs are grommeted. There's 3 at the top, then you've got 3 more down the side, and then you've got another one down here. Although there is quite a handy cutout here above the power supply, which sometimes this can be really handy for putting front panel audio through, or USB cables and the like. There's quite a few clipping areas for you to be able to zip tie your cables up. There's 2 just either side of the CPU cutout. There's 2 more over this side and 2 over here. In fact, they're in 3s, maybe even 4s. Yeah, there's 4, 4, 4. But there's none on this side. So there's a total of 12 here, where your motherboard is going to be your motherboard cables are going to want to go through or come round, so that you can clip them all up. So there's plenty of cable room. Would have been nice to have had a couple up here, because obviously generally we end up putting the 8-pin cable up towards this direction anyway, so that might have been nice. CPU cutout, I've seen bigger, but it's still accessible for the board that we're using. It does seem to be getting to a point now where the boards the cutouts are getting massive. This doesn't seem small. It's definitely a good size, but I have definitely seen bigger. Cable management room around the back is more than ample. I'm just going to take a look. There's 13mm of space from the back of the motherboard tray to the door, so there's loads of room around the back there. Absolutely loads of room. And if I zoom you in down the bottom there, you can see that there's absolutely loads of it. I'm actually really impressed with the amount of room there is around the back of the board. Now, I've not really made any massive attempts to try and keep this tidy or anything. I've just done a quick few cable ties and got it in there, and you can see that even without loads of effort, which I've, to be perfectly honest with you, I've not put loads of effort into keeping it tidy, it still does look really clean around the back. Right then, so onto the main side of the case. Now there's 2 thumb screws on each door, and they're plastic coated thumb screws, are quite easy to take out. When you do remove the door, what you need to do, because where it's quite plain, you do seem to want to pull it to make it release. Now when I do it, you have to just pull it out that way, and it only really attaches in at the front edge. So that's it. There's no like lock-in mechanism or anything like that. It's just quite a simple pull out, and then you pull to remove it. Now, it's quite a plain door, and generally with the doors when they're like this, you have risk of flex. Now this has actually got a fair bit of weight in it, and that's if I turn the camera thing around so you can actually see. This is basically because the folds on the edges of the doors, there's a hell of a lot of material there. The doors have got a good weight to them. They are steel anyway, so it's not going to be the lightest case in the world, but it sometimes with stuff like this, you run the risk of it flexing or feeling cheap. This has got a very kind of nice weight to it, makes the quality feel good. So that gives us our first look at the actual case on the inside, and I'm going to move the lights a little bit just so that we can see a bit better. So kit that we've got in there, quite accessible kit, do you know what I mean? Just like not an average system, but a good spec system in there. 7970, NHD14, AX750, although this is only a 160mm long power supply. The AX1200 would come out significantly further on. But an XL, not an XL ATX, E-ATX motherboard, although this does support XL ATX boards, and the screw holes are there to be able to put the extra set of motherboard standoffs are in. It does also support EBB boards as well, so the slightly larger, I want to say server boards, although if you were to use an EBB board, it would screw right up to the edge of the hard drive cage and where the optical bays would be, and it would make cable tidying quite difficult. Now, looking towards the front, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 hard drive mounts, and they're just the normal kind of toolless. You just kind of bend them to put your hard drives in place. So you've got 7 of those. There's ample room between the hard drives and plenty of room, I'm trying to find my words today. Plenty of room between and plenty of ventilation as well, so that this 220mm front fan will easily be blowing over them, and do you know what I mean? It's not going to be restricted there at all. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 optical bays, as I said before, and they're toolless. Now, the case comes with the front fan fitted, a roof fan fitted, which is another 200mm fan, and 120mm in the back. Obviously, this is where it kind of gets difficult, because you can change things a lot. Obviously, you can swap the front out for 120s if you want. You can swap the roof out for 120s as well, because you can fit a total of 3 120s in the roof, which kind of leans you towards where we're going to end up going with the water cooling. But if I turn the case around that way, and I'll zoom you in, you can see that there's lots of room for your air cooling heatsink. Now, there's plenty of room. You could easily get the biggest air heat sinks in here. So the Thermalright Archon, or the Fantex with a dual, the Fantech cooler with the dual 140 fans, it'll fit in this fine. Even over your RAM, I don't think you're going to have any issues there at all. So turning it back around that way, trying to look at what I'm doing. Like I said, you can see there's ample room in this case to get everything in there that you could want to. Now, the hard drive cage in the front can be removed altogether. There's 4 screws in the bottom and some screws in the top, and you can remove that altogether to make it so you can install a radiator in the front. But what I'm going to do now is I'm going to pop the air heatsink off, as to not confuse people, because people kept saying last time about why did I have an air heatsink and a radiator in, even though the radiator wasn't hooked up. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to remove the front hard drive cage, I'm going to take the heatsink out, and then take the roof fan out, and I'm going to put a radiator in the roof for you to give you an idea on sizes. And so yeah, I'm going to get on with this quickly, and I will be back with you in a second. Right then, peeps, hard drive cage is out, and as you can see now, we've removed the hard drive cage. Has exposed this cutout area in the bottom of the optical bays. Now, for those of you that follow my videos, you may think to yourself, well, that looks familiar. I'm sure he does that with did that with his Shinobi. And actually, that's where the idea come from. They noticed my Shinobi build, and they've kind of tried to roll it into the case. Now, this is where I start to get a little bit pernickety, because the gap from the front, or the gap that they've left, I'm trying to pick my ruler up, I know I'm in front of the camera, the gap that they've left is, I can't get hold of it now, is 80mm. Now, if that was 85mm, or say 90mm maybe, you could squeeze a full-size radiator in there and a fan. So that you basically, because what I call a full-size radiator is a 60mm thick radiator, and then an average fan is 25mm. And I'd stick with the 25mm fans over getting the skinnier fans, because you obviously want a better quality fan rather than a skinnier fan. But anyway, so this, I believe, this cutout should have been bigger. Now, if it's for structural reasons that it can't be, I honestly think that they should have just removed it all together and had a support bar go through, or something that you could screw into place. You could have even had 2 or 3 of these support bars, and maybe had a selection of screw holes in the side that you could have moved the bars along, if it is for structure, or for structural reasons, I should say. As it is at the moment, I would honestly say that the thickest radiator you can put in the front is 50mm thick. Because then with 50mm thick, that gives you room for the 25mm fan and a few more mil as well, so that you can actually get your fans in the first place. as it is, when you do fit, this is a 45mm thick radiator. It's actually the Alpha Cool XT45. It's 45mm thick. As it is, even with this, it is can be quite tight to get it in. So you'd want to put the radiator in and then start trying to screw the fans in. And as you can see, by the time you've got that in there, and if I pick a fan up quick, and just because I want to pick a fan up quick, I'm looking around the office and I can't see one. But even if you then wanted to put a fan in there, as you can see, even with a 45mm thick rad, there's not a massive amount of room there afterwards, and you obviously don't want it too close. So 50mm thick for an absolute top end on that front. I think they've missed a bit of a trick with this, because this could have been easily fixed. When we move on to the roof, having a look with the roof, there's, from the motherboard to the roof again, there's 80mm, so it's the same story. 50mm thick radiator in the roof, and then you can still get a set of fans on. So no 60mm support. Now I say no 60mm support. Now I am generalising, because if I move that in a bit more, I am generalising, because the way I see it is I'm being safe. The way I suggest it is you only allocate the room from the very top of the motherboard to the top of the case, because there's going to be many of you out there that will come into RAM problems, heatsink problems, 8-pin power cable problems like this. So I stick with the safe side. So the safe side, even with the Rampage 4, because where the 8-pin is still tight with the middle fan. And that's even with this 45mm thick radiator. So yes, again, I would say an absolute maximum thickness radiator of 50mm with a single set of fans. And that would be a single set of fans either on the top of the radiator or on the bottom of the radiator, but that would still be inside. Now some of you say just fit the fans outside of the roof. But if I drop the camera down and show you up, if you look through, you can see that there's a support bar. Now I need to do this so that you can see, a bit like a weatherman. You can see that support bar. Now that's actually one of the structural bars in the roof, part of the plastic. And when you try and put a fan above, it stops you being able to fit the roof back on again properly. This again is something they've missed out on, because if that support bar had been removed and you could put a fan up there, then you could have had a set of fans on the inside and a set of fans on the outside, which would have meant you could have at least had push-pull. Excuse me. Now, with the push-pull, that would have also meant that it would have lit the outside of your case, so that you'd have the lights outside. As it is, yeah, it does start to get really complicated. So there's no fitting the fans outside underneath the roof at all. 50mm thick maximum radiator, I would advise, no matter whether you are which side of the place that you have the fans on, which side of the radiator. And even then, with a 50mm rad, as with our case here or our motherboard, you could still end up having fouling problems with components on the board, power cables and stuff like that. So it is a bit of a shame, I have to admit. I was hoping for a little bit more than this. Now, if I stand the case up, I'm going to have to move the camera again, but we'll do it. Right, so we're just looking in the side. So what we're going to assume now is that we've got a radiator in the front and a radiator in the roof. Your only real options for... There we go. A radiator in the front and a radiator in the roof. Your only real options you've got to put your pump will be in the floor. And then maybe a reservoir in the side, because if you have a radiator in the roof and a radiator going all the way up the front, then you won't be able to put a double bay resin, because that will be covered up. So like I said, it does get complicated very quickly. If you want to use a skinnier radiator, so you can use push-pull, then you have an option with the XSPC RX 360s, and I've got one here just to be able to show you. These are only 30mm thick, but I have to admit, guys, I'd only really use these if you're really short on space, because the way I would do it, in all honesty, is push-pull can make a nice difference, but I would always favour a thicker radiator. Now obviously you can see you can get this in the roof nice and easy, and you can get 2 sets of fans on this. Same in the front, it'll fit nice and easy, and you could get 2 sets of fans on that as well. But like I said, unless you're confident that the radiators will give you ample cooling, and you're really just using the push-pull to like illuminate the case, I'd probably favour a thicker radiator if you can. One thing I will say though is if you're handy with a Dremel, it would be quite easy to Dremel out this part of the bottom of the hard drive cage. If you did that, then bang a full-size 60mm thick radiator in the front, couple of sets of fans, bosh, easy peasy. That's if you fancy dremeling this out. Same with the if you say for example you wanted to put a 240mm radiator in the front, because some people will think that it will fit underneath. What you need to remember is that the 240mm fans will sit here, but you need to remember with those radiators is the end tank. And by the end tank, I'm just going to lean across and grab yet another radiator. I'll keep all this kind of stuff around for the reviews. It's this bit at the end of the radiator. Now, to get that in there, it is immensely tight, to the point where it's touch and go with you actually be able to get the barbs out at the top. And on the other end, it doesn't line up at all. You wouldn't be able to fit it in. So it's one of these things that unless you've actually got the hardware to hand, and obviously like I'm lucky that I'm out of, you're never going to be able to work out ahead of time which way round stuff can go. One thing I would say, if you're considering this for water cooling, taking the bottom of this drive bay out, to me, I would do it anyway. I'd definitely be taking more of that out so I can fit a thicker radiator in the front. So what I would probably do would be go with a thicker radiator in the front, and then something like one of the 45mm thick Alpha Cools in the roof. If you want to have matching radiators, as I would, Alpha Cool do a 60mm thick rad, which you could use in the front, and then the 45mm thick rad that you could use in the roof. And if you wanted to use XSPC, you could use the RX 360 in the front, and then the EX 360 in the roof. And then you just need to work out where you're going to put your pumps and your reservoirs and the like. So there are options there. I don't want to start making this about start moving into a conclusion, but I do think that BitFenix could have done a little better with this, to be honest with you, than they have done. But what I'm going to do now is we're going to move on and have a look at the meshes now, and then have a look at the window also. Right then guys, for the meshes, I've actually only got the top meshes in each colour. Now I'm not fixing them in place because I've got so many to work through, but I have got the badges as well. Now this is a light blue mesh, and I've also got the light blue coinciding badge for the front. Now what I'm going to do is, rather than changing them all in front of you, I'm going to work my way through all the different colours, because I have a lot. And I'm just trying to take them out because all the little edges, and I mean, we've got a lot to get through. So I'm going to stop the camera and change the next colour, and the next colour that I'm going to do is going to be pink. Okay guys, so there's the pink. Again, they're not fixed in place because I'm not going to keep popping the roof off and putting the roof back on. And I'm also leaving the front on, rather than just giving you a top down look, leaving the front black, so that you've got a good, so you've got the contrast there, you can see the difference. Now I've not got a pink badge to go with these, but I will say that the pink, I'm not sure how it's going to show on the camera, but it's quite what I would call a hot pink, rather than a baby pink. It looks quite striking up against the black. Next colour that we're going to do though is gold. Right then, moving on to the gold. The black and the gold, I have to admit, I really like the look of this. For those that remember the old days of Formula 1 with the old JPS black and gold colours, this is just what it screams out. And I have to admit, it does give it, I'm not going to say a quality feel, but I really like the look of this. It's just a really nice touch. And they do have a gold badge that goes with it as well, and I really like the look of this, to the point where I'd almost go as far as to say, with the black, the gold is my personal favourite colour. Right then, on to the second blue. This is actually a much darker blue, and just to show you, I'm just going to show you the two together. You can see one's a lot lighter, this one's a lot lighter than this one, but still really nice. I'm not sure which of the two I prefer actually. It's got a blue badge as well, and just again to show you, just because the two colours are so similar, there's the light and the dark blue badges side by side. I think that the blues, unless you are going for a black and blue rig, I think the blues are probably going to be more popular if they do decide to do any different colours at a later date. But we're going to move on now, and as we've done blue, we're going to move on and do the good old-fashioned red. So moving on to red, black and red together, good old-fashioned Asus Republica Gamers colours. So it lends itself to a lot of other, ties in with a lot of other things as well. AMD graphics cards, EVGA boards, all kinds of different stuff. Many of you may remember the 6-hour challenge rig that I did, where I first cut the bottom of the drive bays on a Shinobi. Anyway, I ended up using red strips on that, and I used the case for quite some time, to the point where, if I just pan round quickly just to show you, it's actually still there because we decommissioned it just last week, and I've been using it for quite some time. So that's the black and red. Also has a red badge, and in case some of you are thinking that red looks very orange, the orange is there. So it's not as reddy as I was expecting. It's quite a light red. It's not as dark as the strips, but nonetheless it is red and not orange. Next colour up will be green. On to black and green. Obviously NVIDIA colours, or even you could say AMD colours when you think about it as well. It's quite a dark green. I'd say it's what I would call a grass green, if that makes any sense to any of you colourites out there. Obviously comes with a green badge as well for the front. Again, does look quite nice, does definitely lend itself to a lot of kind of tie-ins with different components and stuff. We're going to move on now, and we're going to look at orange. So moving on to orange. Orange seems to be a colour that keeps popping up recently. Obviously I did the Bengals system recently, that was black and orange. And MNR as well, many moons ago, and it's a colour that's definitely growing in popularity. I really do like it as well, because you can do some really nice, interesting stuff with it. Does come with a badge as well for the front to tie it all in. We're going to move on swiftly on now and take a look at white, which is the last colour that we're going to be looking at. So moving on to white, really nice, striking contrast with the white lines down this. It's quite subtle as well. This I do really like. I can imagine this all the way down the front. Some really nice, subtle white LED fans in the roof could make this look the absolute shiznies. Does come with a white badge, as you'd expect, but just to finish off, you can also get a black badge if you want to go all stealth. And you can also get a mirror finish badge as well, or like a brushed aluminium badge, although that's what it does come with out the box. So this is just the stock fan. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to gather my thoughts, make myself a good old-fashioned cup of tea. Once I've done that, it will be a couple of seconds for you, but we'll be back and we're going to get this video finished and move in with a conclusion. Right then guys, moving on to the conclusion. Now just quickly, I'm just going to show you a picture now, just briefly, of the window panel that is going to be available in the side. Now this is going to be available as an add-in later on. Anyone in the EU is going to have to buy it as a cost option, and it's going to be between, they're saying in UK money, between £12 and £15. So I'm just going to show you that picture now. Okay, so that's the window panel, and as you can see, it's nice that they've taken notice and not put any fan grills in the side. Now this is something that when I met BitFenix recently, I was like, you have to just do a plain panel, really. Initially they were trying to say that they couldn't change it, and I had a big argument with them about it, saying, well, of course you can change it. You make all this stuff, make it differently. To me, it's as simple as that. There is no can't, there's a won't. But one thing I will say is it's actually, now this isn't the side panel because this has got grills in, but it's the Colossus side panel. Now the reason why I'm mentioning this is because I want to talk to you about the case, because this is where it's going to get kind of difficult, so I'm going to try and gather my thoughts properly so I can explain this to you. BitFenix had an amazing opportunity with the Shinobi in the fact that it was a good case to start with, good price, and obviously they just wanted to make it bigger with more water cooling options. But what they've actually done is this is a Colossus, if you didn't realise already. And basically it's a Colossus with a different front and a different roof. But it's essentially the Colossus. What they've done with the roof is obviously added in the extra slot for the extra fan in the roof, so we can have 3 120mm fans, and they've obviously done away with all the bay and everything like that. And in the back of the case, what they've also done is they've added an extra PCI slot in. Now this is where things start to get complicated, because in the Colossus you could get a 60mm radiator in the roof and a 25mm fan, and it would fit above the motherboard. Where they've added that extra PCI slot into the motherboard tray area, what they've effectively done is lost that gap off of the water cooling radiator for the roof. So effectively, by adding the PCI slot, they've now made it so that you can't really fit a 60mm thick rad in the roof, and you have to use that smaller rad. Now to me, that's a little bit, I find that a little bit fuzzy logic. I can understand the kind of the engineering and the costing behind not wanting to make everything, you know, bigger and all that kind of stuff, because they wanted to keep the basics of the case based around the Colossus. But I think that 60mm radiator support in the roof is almost, I would say, an industry standard now. That's, in an enthusiast water cooling case, pretty much, you know, a 60mm thick rad is what most people will have. RX360, there's the old Thermachills, the UT from Alpha Cool, you've got the G changers from Phobia, all 60mm thick. Everyone has got a 60mm thick radiator. When you start having to go for the thinner radiators, not only are you being limited on your performance, but you also have to get a little bit more picky about, you know, your brands and stuff, and making sure that you're getting a decent rad and not just something that's, you know, massively smaller. I know you can get even skinnier rads, but again, you know, you're going to be limited on performance, and for such a big case, I do see it as being, like I said, a bit fuzzy logic. I think they've kind of missed the point there. Same with the front, with the 360mm support in the front. That gap in that cutout in the optical bay at the front is a bit narrow, to be honest with you. And I think, again, considering how much room you could have there, I think they've kind of missed that out. Also, with the optical bays, when you fit the radiator in the optical bays, the where you mount that top fan to for the rad, if you were going to have a 360, is on the flexible, removable blanks for the opticals. So you would have to go careful if you were intending on use those. If it comes out, if they do bend out and fall out, it's not so much of a problem because you're still going to have the mounts in the further down, but they're still they're not going to be the most secure mounts at the top, at all. Also, something that I'm slightly concerned about is the front of the case. Now, when I did my Shinobi, only had a 240mm radiator in it, and they were very, very low speed fans because I was using the original Spectre fans. With a 360mm rad and reasonable fans like the Focus Flow fans or something like that from Noctua, the front of this case is going to suffer with airflow options. There's no ways to get around it because they've not really done anything to allow for extra airflow in these front gaps. To the point where I would almost be, if I was going to have it, I'd be taking the mesh out and taking the tabs out of the side here. I'd still put the mesh back in, but I'd be taking all these tabs out just to try and give it more airflow. I may even go as far as to put like mesh in the front or something to make sure that the radiator can breathe properly, because essentially what they've done with the Shinobi design is just made it fit the Colossus shell really, and I think they could have done a little bit more to have made it work a bit better. Considering all this is a front panel, I think they could have maybe even made the front panel a bit thicker and had some extra air vents down the side to make sure that that radiator could breathe properly. Because I know, without a shadow of a doubt, the radiator, if you pull the front off when you've got a rad running, I reckon your temps are probably going to drop by 3 or 4 degrees. If you've got it on load, so you've got like one radiator, graphics card, CPU, I reckon your temps will drop by about 4 degrees just by pulling the front off because of the extra airflow. It could end up restricting it that much, especially after longer periods of use. So yeah, it's a complicated one. Now I want to talk about the award. I should have said about it first, but I'm going to give it a gold award because the case is only 120 quid, and I think the trumps for this is the fact that you can get 2 360s in it, no matter what the thickness are, and you're going to be able to have the options of changing the meshes and stuff. So you're going to be able to play with that. They are going to have a window, even though it's going to cost you an extra £15. But I've got to admit, there's never been a case that I've given a gold award to, but I'm finding it really difficult for me not to get personal with this, because I think they could have done a lot better if they'd listened. I think they could have done a lot better if I can understand that they're trying to keep this in on a budget and stuff like that. I probably understand this more than most will. But I think with this case, I think it's been a bit of a missed opportunity in the respect of it could have been so much better. And the problem is, around this price point, I mean, if you take a £120 case, by the time you've added an extra £15 onto buying a window panel, and say for argument's sake you've bought some mesh as well, so we'll add another £10 onto that, you then instantly into and beyond the territory of the NZXT Switch 810, and also you've exceeded the cost of the Cooler Master Stormtrooper. And if you were to put those cases by the side of, these, the Stormtrooper and the Switch look like they're worth the money. This is quite bland, really. It's quite a basic design. It's a well laid out design, but it's not the most shouty design. So it's definitely going to be the type of person that's going to buy it is going to want a more subtle case. This isn't going to be a big, shouty, kind of loud thing. Which is kind of, again, you're either going to love that or you're going to hate that. I can see uses for both, in all honesty. Something else that I'm not massively kind of happy about, to be honest with you, is the dust filter. I mean, that to me is a bit of mesh. It's not really a dust filter. Although there are a couple of 120mm fans in the bottom, which I've not mentioned, they've got proper dust filters on them. That to me isn't really a dust filter. It's kind of a cop-out, really. So I think that, again, could have been better. And that also doesn't support the whole of the radiator. If you were to if you're going to have a radiator all the way up the front, That's not going to cover all of it. So it's kind of difficult because this is quite basic. The hard drive rack, if you take that out to fit a radiator in the front, you've then got to use the optical bays to fit your hard drive in. But if you've got a 360 in the front, you've not really got anywhere you can go with a hard drive at all. Now, I know a lot of you out there are going to remember my videos where I'm always telling you to just rip the hard drive bays out anyway. That's fair enough if you're going to go fully water and you're just going to have a couple of solid state drives in there or something like that. But for a mass-produced case like this, to not have really anywhere to put the hard drives afterwards, because most of you out there are going to have at least one hard drive, so a hard drive and a solid state drive for argument's sake, you're not going to have anywhere to put it. And if you put it, like I said, if you have all the if you have a 360 in the front, you're only just going to be able to squeeze anything in that very top optical bay, which will then mean that you've got nowhere to put an optical drive. And there's plenty of you out there that are going to want an optical drive and a hard drive. So this is why I mean, the more you kind of start to take this case apart, from the first looks and everything I'd seen previous, I was really excited about it. But then when you actually start to get it and start to take it apart, you realise that if you do this, you're going to have problems doing that. If you do this, you're going to have problems doing that. This doesn't quite fit because they've done that. There's lots of kind of trade-offs that they've done with this. And I think if they'd spent a little bit more time on it, it could have been epic. I honestly think what they should have done was aimed it at the £140 to £150 price point, added an extra optical bay in to take it up that little bit further for the rad support, because not only would an extra optical bay give you more options once you'd stuck a radiator in the front, but the extra height would have meant you could have gone push-pull on a 60mm radiator in the roof as well. And I honestly think that they should have had that hard drive case being able to have been split. So even if it was just a couple, you could have had it further in front of the hard drive, of the radiator in the front. And I also think that the front should have been a bit thicker so that you had extra ventilation in the front for that if you did use a radiator to be able to pull through. Now, many of you may be aware I've got quite a close relationship with NZXT, so you may be surprised that I'm being quite so harsh on this. But this is meant to be what we do. I'm meant to be reviewing this. I'm meant to be telling you the plus points and the negative points. Now, you may think I found a lot of negatives for this to still be a gold, but it's still a 120 quid case that you're going to be able to stick a couple of radiators in easily, really. All you've got to be is careful about what you do. It's got ample room and you've got customizing options. So it's worth its gold award, but I'm picking out these points because in all honesty, if it had been a bit more expensive and they'd spent a bit more time on it, it could have not only been a gold, but this is yet another one where I've sat here thinking, if they'd done that, it could have been worth a platinum, or it could have been worth a diamond award or whatever. So it's one of the ones where it's gone, on paper, it looked like it could have been perfect, and it's kind of dived off at the last minute. So it's still a great case, and it came so close to being epic, but it just missed it. But I have to admit, BitFenix are definitely moving in the right direction with these. It's still a relatively new company. They're only a couple of years old, and they are definitely moving in the right direction. If for no other reason, they finally listened to me and they've got us a window, the first window that they're going to be offering without fan mounts in it. And there's a lot of things that I know that they've got coming over the next year and so, because there's a few of them that I'm working with on them that could be brilliant. Could be really, really good. So the Shinobi XL does deserve its gold, even if it's only just deserves its gold, because I have to admit I was wavering between silver and gold at the beginning, but I've decided to give it its gold. But like I said, even if it had cost a bit more, this could have been so much better. It didn't need to be the case of yeah, you can do that, but yeah, you can do that. But it should just be, yeah, it supports that. Yeah, you can do that with it. Yeah, you can do that with it. It should just be yes. There shouldn't be a yes, but. And it was something that I was hoping there be a lot less buts, basically. So that's it, guys. That's the TTL verdict on the BitFenix Shinobi XL. Great case, but it was that close to being perfect if they'd just done a little bit more with it, rather than just relying on one of their old chassis. So I think all they're really trying to do is get their money out of the design, but B, the essential internals, which are the old Colossus, which has pretty much run its course now. So yeah, I'm going to leave that little lot with you. If you've got a bit confused, I apologise, because I know I've kind of gone all over the place with different things, and I'm probably going to end up realising that I've missed stuff, as in my conclusion. So if I've confused you, I apologise. Just go back to the beginning of the conclusion and watch it again, and I'm sure you'll pick the points up. But for now, at least, this is Tiny Tom Logan finally getting his grubby little mitts on the BitFenix Shinobi XL, which just really scraped in with a gold award, but it was just as well. But I'm going to love you and leave you. Hope you enjoy the review. Don't forget to subscribe, comment, all that kind of stuff, and I will see you all soon. This is Tiny Tom Logan with another video for you. Out.